your two hosts, Carlos and Dylan.
What's up, Rolling with Carlos family? What's up, Gator Nation? How you doing today, Dylan?
I'm good. Excited to be back.
What are your thoughts of the game? Personally myself, I saw some Urban Meyer tendencies in that offense, which was nice to see, especially that quarterback power.
Yeah. I think, like you said, it was nice to see a little different offense. I honestly felt better about what I saw out there. I think, a lot of the games early on in the season, you could come away with a decision or two that just you were like, what? Like, what's going on? Why would you make that decision? I personally didn't feel like there was anything, too much. I think some people might argue that the third down quarterback run was a questionable decision, or going for it on fourth down. I think you go for it on fourth down every time. I was super happy with that decision. And, the third down quarterback run, I think it was a good idea. I think, I was a little frustrated that Lagway cut it outside. I felt like, you're a big body guy. You got, I think it was 2 yards, 3, 4 yards. Go straight up the middle and get some mean yards, get some fight for it. But yeah, I thought for what the staff is and, for how short notice it was, I thought they did a really good job. Like you said, I think the offense was a lot better. Even watching some of the breakdowns that people do on Twitter and whatnot, there was some nice things to see there. I think we had wide receivers open all day. It was a little tough because Florida didn't have the ball as much as you would like. The time of possession was a big in favor of Georgia, so it seems like the offense didn't have the night you wanted. They only ended up with I think under 300 yards. But I liked what I saw on offense and just all around. I mean, you take a good Georgia team down to the wire, arguably should have beat them. I think Florida had every chance to beat them, which has been kind of, something that's happened every game so far this year, it feels like, other than one or two where Florida should have won that game. But this one felt different. It felt like, they fought their tail off, and if one or two things went right that went wrong, they would have won this game, and it would have been a great upset and a great story. So all in all, I'm happy with how the interim did. I'm happy with Ryan O'Hara, and I'm happy to see some Gator football where, we don't leave the game thinking, why did this happen? Why was this decision made at the end of the day?
I was expecting, I guess because I've watched the Urban Meyer era, I was expecting that power back, power quarterback run through the middle, but I was expecting also the jump pass. I'm surprised that they didn't pull it out of the bag, because one of those quarterback powers, I was like, okay, you can act like you're gonna run it and then throw it, but we didn't see it. Like when he ran that and he was short, he was short by. It should have been. It was 4th and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And he was short. I was expecting the jump pass, but
that would be fun. I don't know if we ever see that, but that would be fun.
Yeah. In terms of, I know one play doesn't decide the game, but in terms of that scramble where he hit J. Michael Sturdivant, would you consider that a catch? I know the call on the field, and that's what I hate about replay. If you're not certain, don't call it on the field. Just let the replay decide. But the call on the field always hampers if they can overturn or stands. They shouldn't even make a call on the field if they're not 100% sure. In my opinion, looking at the tape a couple times, it was a catch. We have another Gator insider, which is a close friend of ours, Brandon Olson, saying it wasn't a catch. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think, everyone inside, I was at the press box at that game. Everyone inside the press box, and this is a big press box filled with probably, over 30 reporters. Everyone, it kind of felt like, thought it was a catch at the time, watching those replays. Like you mentioned, I mean, it's understandable why they didn't call it a catch. And I think from what I've seen on Twitter, I don't know about Brandon in particular, but a lot of people are coming out and trying to explain that is if they called it not a catch on the field, there wasn't enough evidence to say that they were wrong. And that's, kind of the cop out that refs use nowadays is, listen, we
Yes.
called it this on the field. So as long as there's no concrete evidence that we were wrong, we'll just go with that, call. And it's tough. I think it's hard to argue I guess I understand how they called it incomplete on the field because it did look like it bounced off the turf in real time. And, even on the first replay that we got in the booth, I was kind of like, oh, it bounced off the floor. But after you see it, it looked like it bounced off his arms. I probably, lean towards it was a catch. But I understand, at the end of the day, reffing football is one of the hardest jobs. And I promise you, if any of us were out there to make that call, we would have probably got it wrong too. We would have said it was a catch because we're all Florida fans, and we would have just said, all right, give it to Florida. But if it was, a different situation, we probably would be wrong too. So I get where the refs came from, and I think it's always nice to have the refs kind of say, oh, there's not enough evidence, so we'll go with the official call. I think that's the right thing to do. As much as when it doesn't go your favor, it's really annoying. And it was really annoying them. But, yeah, I mean, what else is tough is that throw and catch could have been so much better, could have been so much easier, and we don't have to rely on the refs. I mean, Lagway will tell you, he told us in the press conference, should have been a better throw, should have took his time, should have set his feet. He had more time to make that throw. J-Mike was wide open for a long time there past the defense. And if you look on the film, someone else is also wide open. I don't exactly know who. I think it might have been TJ Abrams, but someone else is open too. So it's tough because, at the end of the day, as much as we might say catch, no catch, it should have been a lot easier. And, the Jaguars field turf did not help anything. I don't think he falls down if we're at the Swamp. But, that's something you expect when you go over to that stadium. So at the end of the night, it was tough, but there was a lot of plays that Florida could have won that game, and that wasn't the only one that lost it for him.
He missed TJ Abrams on a couple plays on the swing pass to Jaden Ball. TJ was wide open. I was like, why did you do this? Why did you do the check down? You see Abrams go like this, but the ball was already gone. So I was like,
yeah, and listen, quarterbacking is tough. I don't want to make it out here like, oh, TJ Abrams was wide open, he should have thrown that ball. DJ Lagway, all in all, a lot of people were hating on him. I thought he had a good night.
He had a good night.
I think what people fail to realize is you'll have a play like the J-Mike play, and you'll have the fourth down where that was a really bad decision, and it kind of just seemed like he predetermined and just threw whatever he thought was going to be open. And people look at those two plays and say, all right, he sucked, right? He didn't have a good night. And, yeah, those plays were really tough, and I think his mistakes came at the toughest points of the game. But all in all, I think he had a good game. People are kind of just blinded by big-time mistakes, which obviously you don't want your quarterback to have.
Do you feel that the team's reinvigorated because of Billy G's personality? Because Billy G will get in your face and yell at you if he has to.
Yeah, I think, there's definitely an energy. And, I mean, even as much as, we love to come on here and people love on Twitter to go out there and, hate on Billy Napier now that he's gone. And even when he was here, there was a lot of that. Give him credit that these players never quit. Even this year when he was there, they kept energy. They kept playing and kept fighting. I saw the same energy. I wouldn't say reinvigorated because they never lost, their edge. They never lost that energy, even when they were down, even after they lost to USF, even after, the season started out tough. But I think Billy G is a great leader. I think, they made a great decision on who was going to take over the interim. It's a pleasure to get to interview him. I mean, after the game, he was pretty clear about that. It wasn't anything like, oh, we were close. Oh, there was plenty of opportunity for him to come out there and say, we could have won that game versus Georgia when we weren't supposed to be in that game, betting
Yeah.
wise, ranking wise, whatever. And he didn't at all. He told us, we expect to win that game and we should have won that game, and there's no excuse. So I think he's a great leader. I love talking to him. I love, how hard the team fought, even if the result wasn't what we expected or what we wanted. But I think he's done a great job so far.
Were you at the presser on Monday or any key
I
points?
was.
How did the presser go on Monday, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah, the presser was good. There was, it wasn't coming off a win, so obviously it's more fun when you come off a win. But he's a great guy to talk to. I think, he's a funny guy to talk to. He'll get on he'll get on something and he'll just keep talking and talking about it. He'll talk your ear off, but he doesn't, avoid questions. I think he's pretty straightforward and he'll tell you, what it is. He'll keep it 100. I enjoyed it. I mean, we talked to him. Any key points? I think, I asked him a question about how he thought Ryan O'Hara did, and he talked a little earlier about it too, about the offense in general. And he seemed very happy with what the offense was doing. He mentioned that tempo was good. And honestly, in the game, I thought tempo was really good.
Yeah, tempo was really good.
I think the drive that we got stopped on 4th down, I remember during that drive, we were still running fast tempo, even though it was the 4th quarter and we were up. And, in the past, that was not something we do. In the past, we tried to drain the clock. And it kind of seemed like they had that killer mentality of let's go down and score a touchdown here, which I loved. So, yeah, that was the main thing to me is, he talked about the middle 8, which I think is very important. And any coach will tell you that, those last couple minutes before half and those first couple minutes out of half are the most important parts of a football game. He talked a lot about that and how important that was and how they couldn't get better there, which I completely agree on. I mean, a big play that he was talking about, which I think a lot of people kind of forgot since it was early on in the game, is we were up. I think we were up by like 3 or what. We were up, and DJ Lagway had Tank Hawkins come wide open, and they missed that throw by this much. If Tank makes that catch and he scores that touchdown, that game could have turned very quickly, and that game could be completely different. So I think that was a big play, and he harped on that. And, he's a great guy to talk to. He's a great guy to take over this job, in my opinion, at least for the short term. I'm not coming on here and saying hire the next head coach.
He's going to be the next head coach.
I'm not saying all that, but he has impressed me so far, and I think, with an interim head coach, you kind of wonder what's going to happen. Either you get a team that's, as you said, reinvigorated, and they go out there and they play their ass off, they play their butt off, or you get a team that, is kind of just like season's over. And we definitely got, the team that plays their butt off, and I'm excited to see. I think this weekend we should have a better result, and I'm excited to see going forward.
Based on what we've seen, are you surprised that the 2026 class is still intact?
Yeah, I think, it is surprising in a way. I wouldn't say in this instance I'm surprised because, we hear all about these guys are all really close. I mean, you've heard it over and over. These guys have a group chat together. They're all really close. They talk all the time. A lot of times, they're all visiting together. They're all hanging out. So I wouldn't say I'm surprised. I'm surprised because you see, as soon as a head coach gets fired, you're expecting the class to fall apart nowadays in college football. I wouldn't say, we're out of the woods just yet. I think there will be guys that end up going out of this class. One guy, I'll give you a little prediction.
A little nugget?
I don't want to jump the gun here, and I don't want to, act like I know for a fact. But I will say, if I was expecting anyone to flip anytime soon, My main guy to keep an eye out for is KJ Ford. I love
Wouldn't
him.
surprise me.
Yeah, I love him as a prospect. I think he was a big get at the time, but there was a report that came out this week that he's going to Texas Tech. There was a little bit of a NIL factor in that recruitment, and if you know anything about Texas Tech, they will outpay you for a recruit. They got that type of bread, and
Yeah.
they're willing to spend. So he's the one I'd keep my eye on. But I've talked about it a little on here. I think a lot of these recruits are Gators, through and through. I think there's a few that I could see, flipping, and there's always guys that want to be Gators and end up, dipping in the long term. But I think a lot of these guys are going to stick. I think, even if we do lose a guy like KJ Ford, the thing with a new regime is you're getting a new coach who might have, new interest in a player. I think one guy I'd tell the fan base to watch out for is Jake Cruel. There was a lot of smoke that he wanted to be a Gator, and I don't know with the last coaching staff. Now, I'm not going to come on here and say, I know everything 100% for a fact, but
We
I
don't
don't
all
know.
know everything. We're
Right.
independent media, but we don't know everything.
Exactly. I think there was a little bit of a concern about how much the last staff had interest in Jake Cruel as much. I think there was definitely interest there, but I think, a different staff might have pushed harder for him to be a Florida Gator, and he's mentioned that this is his dream school. So that's one to watch out for. I mean, obviously that will span into the next head coach. I think if we bring some guy in and he hits up Jake Cruel and he pushes, full throttle on the kid, we might see him in the orange and blue next year. That's one I could see happening. But, I think a lot of this class is pretty committed, and I think a lot of them are, were committed to be Gators. They weren't committed to a head coach, even though a lot of them did love Billy Napier. I think it was more about the logo more than anything. And I think for the most part, this class stays intact, hopefully.
The reason I asked you that question is because Corey Bender, which I would love to get him on the channel constantly if I can get contact with him once I become verified on X, or maybe you can help me out. I don't know if you talked to him, so I don't know.
All right, yeah, I've never talked to him.
Corey interviewed Jeraylin McCoy,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "I'm a Gator with Billy or without Billy." So
Yeah, I think that's.
And then I haven't seen any movement. I was one expecting for it to fall apart because, yeah, NIL plays a factor nowadays, but I figured they were coming also because of Billy's personality.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of shocking. 3 weeks in, we haven't received the letter, which Gator Nation is crying about this. I'm just pointing out as a point. Billy has not said his farewells officially in a letter or a post, and he's already changed his profile on Twitter. And Gator Nation is going crazy, and the class hasn't fallen apart.
Yeah, I think, like McCoy said, I think there's a lot of mindsets that I'm a Gator no matter what. And at the end of the day, it's recruiting. We can all assume one thing or the other about these kids. Like I said, even Kevin Ford, KJ Ford, we can assume he's flipping. At the end of the day, these are high school kids. You're never gonna know what's gonna happen until the pen hits paper. So yeah, I think it's a lot of wait and see who the next coach is. But yeah, another name that I would watch out for is Marquez Daniel. Marquez Daniel, he's super talented. I think there's a little bit of smoke for Miami there. I know he was visiting Miami when UF played Miami. I know they're in constant talk, so he's another one to watch out for. But I think all these kids are still seriously considering being Gators. I think most, if not all of them, are strong in their commitment. And, recruiting is always going to be constantly changing. I'm sure even some of the guys might end up not in this class because the next coach doesn't want to take them. But at the end of the day, I think this is a talented class. And I think they're pretty committed to, staying together and playing for the logo at the end of the day.
I know we haven't spoken about this, and we got to do a show sooner rather than later. who's your top 5 in terms of coaches that you would want the administration to go after? In no particular order. You don't have to. You don't have to put one. You don't have to put numbers on them. But give me your 5.
Putting me on the spot here, cause that's tough. 5. All right. And disclaimer, I haven't necessarily dove into all these guys yet. So, when we do the show about it, I will have more of a solid list. I think, obviously, number 1, Lane Kiffin. I think that's pretty obvious. Every single fan out there has him pretty highly, I'd say. I've mentioned it a little before. People are gonna hate this. I really like the idea of Lincoln Riley. I have
Lincoln Riley as number 3 on my list.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I don't know how realistic it is, but I like him a lot. His offense, he's always had a great offense, and I think, as much as we never know what happens with the defensive coordinator, I love to imagine a world where Ron Roberts stays and you got Lincoln Riley and Ron Roberts. That would be an awesome duo. I think that would be a duo for success. Eli Drinkwitz is one I hear a lot. I don't mind it. I think, he's done really well at Missouri. I got to start giving him credit. I didn't think Missouri was going to be really good this year, and they surprised me. I like him a lot. That's my big 3. Other than that, I haven't done too much diving.
We'll do a show soon before the coach gets hired, because then
we'll do a show.
We'll talk about it.
I think there's a lot of good candidates out there, and I think UF will get one of their top candidates. Hopefully Lane Kiffin. What I've heard, I'm confident in Lane Kiffin, but again, it's the same thing as recruiting. None of us will know until the paper is signed. Exactly. So we'll see. But I'll get that list to you before we do that shit.
Okay. Next question. Have you heard the possible rumor of Franklin going to FSU? Have you heard the rumor of James Franklin possibly going to FSU?
I haven't heard too much about it.
Because I thought he was deciding to deliver to Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything other than maybe, a Twitter rumor or whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't think FSU is going to move on from Mike, at least this year. We'll see. I think there's just too much blocking that. I think, obviously, the payout is crazy. And, everyone around the country knows that this is going to be the craziest hiring cycle in a while. I mean, you got LSU, Florida, Penn State. More probably coming. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be a crazy one. So I think, it's possible. But I think Mike ends up staying at FSU for at least another year. As much as FSU fans won't want that, I think it gets done.
Yeah. Any key plays that you believe, going back to the Georgia game, would have changed the game for us? Or is there anything you would have done different that could have separated us from Georgia?
Yeah, I think, it's tough, for one, Georgia's the number 6 team in the country, and we're playing with an interim coach. So as much as I think that the talent was the same, we already started with kind of, a difficult hand. I think, I mentioned it, the throw to Tank Hawkins, and I don't think it was completely on DJ Lagway or Tank Hawkins. I think, it was just, you see, miscommunications. You see timing being a little off. If he completed that, the game might have changed drastically. I think Florida could have built a pretty strong lead there and had a lot of momentum. The obvious is maybe if Dallas Wilson doesn't leave the game early, we have him to throw the ball to too. It's, we've seen that Dallas Wilson's a game changer. And obviously the J. Mike pass. I think I would have loved to see Lagway on 4th down. Kind of, he's got to remember, and I don't know what the play call was. I don't know what he thought he saw. Don't know. But you got to remember, this is the last play of the game. I would rather you not just throw something that you expect to be open and kind of just blindly throw it. I'd rather you whatever double clutch. He's a great extender of plays. Maybe extend the play out, but that's kind of nitpicky. I know whatever he saw, I'm sure he thought that was going to be an easy first down. So that's tough. The TJ Abrams drop on, I think it was third down, hit him in the hands, would have been a first down late in the game. That was tough. So, there's plays that you can look back on and say, wow, if we had this, if we had that, it would have been a different game. But at the end of the day, we gave him a fight. I thought the talent looked like how it should for the Florida Gators.
Mm-hmm.
And that's football, man. At the end of the day, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. I'm hoping that Florida starts winning some more than losing some in the near future. I know we've been losing more than winning, but yeah, that's football. And anyone will tell you, considering all the odds we were against, to lose that game on just a few plays, I think that's, as much as Billy will tell you no moral victories and all the fan base doesn't want to hear moral victories, you can take pride in what we put on the football field on Saturday.
Now that you brought it up, because it slipped my mind, what's the status and what did Dallas Wilson injure on Saturday? Was it the ankle all over again?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know early on in the season he was wearing a boot on his, I think it was right foot, and then this time he had a boot on his left foot. I know, I think Cam wrote an article where he mentioned that it was the same injury on the same foot. So we haven't heard too much at all.
Okay.
Billy Gonzalez kind of mentioned, you'll get that information soon.
He did a Billy Napier.
He's out for the season. yeah, and we have heard he's out for the season. So I don't think we're gonna get any more, too much information on it. It's a tough one, and as much as I think, I don't know if he got shut down just for safe measure, but at the end of the day, we're 3-5. He's shown us that he can play football, and I think, I'd rather him save a year of eligibility than push an injury that obviously he's been dealing with all year to the limit, and something worse happens. So it's tough, but Florida's shown that they have the talent at wide receiver to get it done. I know Billy Gonzalez did tell us that Vernell Brown III, he'll see how he looks at practice. Might have even gotten a report about it today. I know they have a press conference going on right now. I wasn't able to make it.
Wow, so late?
Yeah, it started at 6. So we'll see what happens there. We might get an update or in the injury report, but it sounded like Vernell Brown is trending towards possibly playing this week or soon. So that's exciting. And obviously, J. Mike's talented, Tank, TJ's talented, and we saw what Eugene Wilson can do when you're using him downfield, which we were.
That's my next question. It's clear, or at least to me, it was clear. Eugene was not being used correctly by Napier because we saw the kid break out late. I mean, it's late in the season, but he finally had that breakout game, and I think it's more clear that Napier was holding people back. Eugene, DJ, and I think DJ's hurt because of Napier, and DJ hasn't been fully developed because of Napier.
Yeah, I don't want to be the type of guy that just throws everything on one person and throws everything on, Napier, as much as there's times where, it frustrated me. And I think there is a very solid evidence that, that offense, I think everyone knew that offense wasn't working. I think everyone knew that Trey Wilson was a better player than what he looked like these last few games. DJ Lagway, obviously the injury stuff, as much as, you never know how much you can blame on the coaching staff and how much is just, crazy, situations behind closed doors, but the injuries also bugging them. So, yeah, I don't want to be the type of guy that's like, oh, look, like Coach Napier was every problem ever, But at the same time, we talked to him so many times. We asked him so many questions about Eugene Wilson. Cam will tell you and I will tell you, we both got yelled at for Eugene Wilson questions. Not yelled at, but he
No, I
when
know, I
you
know what you mean. He gave you that
if
attitude.
you yeah, if you watch the press conferences, you know what I'm talking about. You probably
Yeah,
remember the questions. I
yeah, I
mean,
remember.
I asked after the first game against LIU, he ended up with -4 yards on 5 catches. I asked, is it a goal to get him going downfield more? And he kind of, he gave me the attitude. He gave me, oh, the stats don't tell the whole story, you
I
know.
remember.
And as much as I'm not gonna come out here and say, oh, I told you so, he looked a lot better getting used downfield more. And how much of that is Georgia's unique defensive style? How much of that is using him downfield in different route concepts? I couldn't tell you. Maybe the film will tell you, but it's a tough one because I feel like, anytime you have a coach who ended his term here with a losing record and, ended his term here not with the most favorable of fans, I don't think a lot of fans were still bought in. It's easy to say, oh, everything was his fault. And I think, you know, it's tough because I'm sure there was some stuff that we're blaming him for that wasn't necessarily his fault, and I'm sure there was stuff that was his fault. So I'm never going to be the type of guy that's like, oh, in your face, it's all Billy Napier's fault. But I think Trey Wilson looks to be trending up now. I'm excited to see what we can see from him in the future. And I mean, on Saturday is what we kind of expected as a fan base and what we knew he was capable of. So I'm excited for him in the future.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate with this question just to play fun with it to see what you read out of it. Could have that been a Eugene's last game, Georgia game, as a Florida Gator because he got emotional on the sidelines, or was he just frustrated that he put so much effort and we still lost by 4 points?
Yeah, I don't think, as much as a lot of fans will think that, I don't think players are thinking on the sidelines about, oh, this is my last game against Georgia and crying about that on the sidelines. They've got a lot to think about during a game. So I'm sure he was very frustrated that they lost that game. I think everyone's frustrated that they lost that game and they continue to lose to Georgia. And especially, when you have the type of day he had and there's so much emotions going into that, from having a terrible year, having an injury, having the year that you didn't expect and you're struggling and then you break out and it's like, oh my gosh, so much joy. And then you lose the game. It's a roller coaster of emotion. For transferring, I mean, I'm not gonna say that it's not gonna happen because it's a guy who has not been used as much as you expect. He's for whatever reason it is, he hasn't found the success that he has the talent to find. And those are the type of guys you end up seeing transfer more often than others. So, I think he's a name that people will continue to bring up. I think he's a Florida Gator. I mean, when he committed, he showed the pictures of him as a kid. I think of him as a kid wearing a Gators helmet.
Yes.
He loves Florida. So, it's a tough one because at the end of the day, you can love Florida all you want and you can still leave. We saw it with Pyburn. I don't think anyone expected Pyburn to leave.
No, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, right. I don't think anyone did. So it's a tough one, but I wouldn't buy into that. Oh, he's crying on the sidelines. He's gone. You know what I mean? Like he'll have, if that was the case, he'll have plenty of games left as a Gator before, he starts thinking about that for real. So I think, that's just frustration from losing to a rival after having the game of your, season so far and kind of overcoming a lot of adversity just to get more adversity thrown at you.
2 more questions and then we're out of here. Are you surprised? I know this is not a University of Miami show, but are you surprised the Hurricanes are still on the outside looking into the playoff picture with 2 losses to 2 unranked teams?
Well, Louisville's ranked. Now. They weren't ranked. Yeah. Surprised as in, am I
They're
surprised?
number 18.
Yeah.
They're 6 spots away from being inside the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's tough because you want to respect their early season where everyone, even we were on here saying respect Miami. They look
Yeah.
like one of the better teams in the nation.
Yep.
I think, you want to give them a shot, and maybe you say Louisville is just a good team. SMU we knew was talented. We didn't think that they were the greatest team. And, I'm not by any means saying that Miami should be, let off the leash for those losses. Those are ugly losses, and those are on brand for Mario Cristobal at Miami. And that's the one thing, literally Miami fans themselves, as much as they will come in here and argue with us and make fun of us and get mad at us deep down, and when they're not, ego boosting, they'll tell you themselves that Mario Cristobal has done this consistently. He did it
He's
last
stupid.
year. He does it a lot. So I think it's fair to give Miami a shot just because, 2 losses, especially in this playoff format, doesn't necessarily end your season. I think, do I think that they deserve to be in the playoffs? Not necessarily. We'll have to see how they finish the season. At the end of the day, they could start, from this day going forward, and they'll go right back to looking like the best team in the nation. And maybe we talk differently about it. But how they're playing right now, I don't think they deserve to be in the playoffs. But I understand it. Louisville is highly ranked now, and you're giving them the benefit of the doubt with SMU that they took them to OT, and SMU is a talented team. As much as they're not a good team this year, they're a talented team.
Yep.
So I do get it, but I think, you look at Miami's resume looks a little worse now than it did, knowing that Florida wasn't as, they're talented as ever, but they weren't as prominent. And seeing that Florida State, wasn't as good as everyone expected. Yep. Seeing that, respect to Notre Dame, they're not a bad football team this year, but I think all those wins combined, they looked a lot better on paper at the start of the year than they do right now.
This is not a basketball show, but I got to ask it. I'm just asking for Gator Nation. I'm not panicking. Is it time to panic based on the game 1 loss to Arizona after having such a big lead?
Yeah, no, I posted something on Twitter about it today because I went to the press conference today for basketball. I talked to Todd Golden, and he was asked the question about the adversity of game 1. You lose game 1, and he you could tell, he had no panic in the world about this team. He laughed it off, and he joked about the expectations on this team if we're freaking out after 1 loss. And this is basketball, guys. This is not football season where teams will go undefeated. This is not, football season where you lose 1 game and you're freaking out. This is basketball, guys. People are going to lose games, especially when you play an Arizona team in a tough environment. Even the announcers mentioned it. Most of those fans were Arizona fans. It was loud for Arizona. It was basically a road game. You're playing a tough team. The freshman comes out. I don't think anyone was prepared for the performance that, Arizona's freshman, he's a dog, man. That guy's talented.
Yeah.
And I think he came out and, Todd Golden mentioned it. He beat them in one-on-ones, and I don't think Florida was expecting that. So I'm not worried at all. I think, especially considering they had a lot of chances to win that game, even with bad nights from, I don't think Condon had a good night.
Condon had a bad night.
I don't think Boogie had a good night. I don't think, Lee had a good night. I don't think there was a lot of people that did other than, Thomas Haw and Micah. So I think I might have butchered Thomas's name right there. I'm still bad at it. I know it's been a year, but
Thomas Howe.
Yeah, I'm so bad at that, but I don't think there's any reason to panic. I think the guard play will be better. I've been at practice. I've watched them scrimmage. I've watched them play. The guard play has been better. I think, Lee will shoot better than he did. I think Boogie.
Yeah, his shot was flat that game.
I think Lee will shoot better. I think Todd Golden even mentioned a lot of people were freaking out about Walter Clayton a year ago. The same way. Actually, I don't know if that was to Todd Golden. Someone mentioned that, and it's the same thing. They're gonna have games. If you're a shooter, you're gonna have a game where you're off. I think
Yeah.
Boogie Fland seemed to be dealing with, you know, he didn't seem as healthy as you would have loved
I
for
was
him
going to
to
say
be.
that he didn't have the same burst I was used to watching off tape.
Yeah, and I think he'll get better as we go. Todd Golden mentioned he was disappointing on defense, and I can guarantee you guys, I've watched practices. He's a menace on defense. That guy is damn good on defense, so he'll have a bounce back. So yeah, I'm not worried at all. I'm actually pretty excited. I think Tommy looked like we expected him to look, like one of the better players in the country. I think Micah. I mean, a lot of people were talking about how they expect Micah to be, back to pre-injury, and he looked good, man.
Oh
I
no,
think
he
he
was
had a
good. He
double
was good. He
double.
was good.
He had a great game. I think Chinyalu will play better games. I think I think I'm blanking on his name now here. Who's the big man? Conjuring.
Alex Condon.
Yeah, Condon. I was blanking there. Sorry.
Don't worry about it.
I
got
think
the
Condon will
45
have
down.
I'm a little slow tonight, but Condon will have better games, and I think the guard play will get a lot better. So I'm not worried. I think if I was to let myself worry, it would be about the guards and scoring wise. I know even Golden mentioned today, once Boogie Flam was out of the game, the offense kind of got a little unorganized compared to when he was in the game. And that's worrisome because you're not going to have Boogie Fland in the game at all times. But I'm expecting better things from Lee. I'm expecting better things from Herb. I think I love Herb. I think Herb's going to have some great games. So I'm excited for this team. And Arizona, I think a lot of Gator fans expect that we're the national champs and we haven't lost in a while, that we're never going to lose again, and that Arizona's way worse than us. Arizona's a good basketball team. You lost to a good basketball team in the first game, the opening day. There's a reason most basketball teams play really bad opponents in the first game, and it's because you can get caught slipping at any time. So I'm not worried at all.
Guys, I'm going to ask him one more question, but I'm also going to tell you this, and I'm going to do a hot take real quick. This is not a basketball show, but I'm going to do a hot take on the basketball program. Expect Arizona and Florida to be in the Final Four. That's all I'm going to say.
That's hot. I like it. It's hot, but we'll see.
One more question on the basketball program. Why the heck wasn't that flagrant foul not called on Ruben Chinyalu? They ripped his jersey completely off. Are they blind?
I think it was more of it. It wasn't necessarily violent. As much as that's a grown man ripping a guy's shirt off, that's really tough. But I think it wasn't excessive enough for them to call it. It's basketball.
Okay, you have to take off his jersey and take off the jersey underneath.
Hey, listen, it's basketball. I think the players will even tell you, like, let us be a little physical. I know that's a little excessive, ripping some guy's shirt off, but it's Division I basketball. 2 top teams in the nation. They're gonna get physical. It's gonna be a dogfight. So I kind of respect it. Huh?
Did Golden say something about it?
Yes, they asked him if he's ever seen it before, and he said he's never seen it before. So that was funny. So, but it's basketball. Let the guys play a little bit. I get that it happened to us, so we're like, oh, flagrant. But at the end of the day, let them play ball. I like the refs giving them a little bit of leeway there.
All right, guys. We'll have the pregame show on Saturday, somewhere between 10 and 11 a.m. We're trying to get a guest for either from Gators SI or from the Kentucky side. We'll see if we can get a guest on. Follow my friend and co-host at Dylan Olive _UF. Follow his work at Gators SI. Follow Cam. Follow Tyler. Follow Sam Samadovitz. Follow all the crew on Gators SI, because I can keep naming the names because I follow a bunch of them on Twitter. Even though I haven't gotten Kyle on the show, and some of them still on the show, but we'll get them on the show. And I'm working in the background to give you a basketball show as soon as I can get an insider or somebody that I can bounce some questions off. But like always, we'll always be here. This is only season 1 of the SwampCast. Like always, stay positive, stay on your grind, and go Gators. Peace.
Peace.